We had a whole. Okay,
While we're on this topic, I do have one question, and I'm almost certain I know the answer, but Debbie, I think that I saw in one of the promos for one of the home rule charter cities, it talked about taxing people who didn't live in the city but worked in the city. And my memory is that when we talked about that, you had said that we were not allowed to do that. Is that accurate?
You want to take that, Michael?
Yeah, I can, excuse me, I can respond to that. There's a provision in the home rule charter and optional plans law that basically says that the home rule charter cannot levy taxes on non-residents above the legal limit that's already established in the Local Tax Enabling Act, known as Act 511, which I believe at this point, and would remain at this point until the laws change, but I doubt it would be changed. It would be 1% on non-residents, people that work here but do not live here. That would apply only in circumstances, excuse me, that would apply only in circumstances where the person lives does not levy a local earned income tax, which is where your first obligation is with regard to where you live.
Yeah.
And any rate left over then goes to where you work. But I would say almost absolutely, the communities in Western Pennsylvania all levy a local earned income tax at 1%, unless they're home rule, which those rates would be higher. So if you work here but don't live here, chances are you're not going to pay anything to where you work under the earned income tax, the Local Tax Enabling Act, because again, your first obligation is to where you live. However, I need to qualify what I'm saying in the context of the Municipal Pension Plan Standard and Recovery Act, known as Act 205, which does allow a earned income tax to be levied upon not only residents but non-residents, specifically for pension purposes, with regard to the city being either severely distressed or moderately distressed regarding the funding of the pension plans. But under a home rule charter environment, the law states, again, the home rule charter and optional plan law states clearly that non-resident earned income taxes cannot be raised beyond what they already are under another statute, the Local Tax Enabling Act. That has been in place for years. So I don't think there's going to be any impact on people that work in Beaver Falls but live elsewhere. Except again, and I do believe that the city of Beaver Falls does have a pension levy on the earned income tax for both residents and non-residents. I know that was a long answer to a short question. That's basically how it works. Let me also go into the discussion earlier on with regard to a comment that was made about the public hearing and the proposed draft of the home rule charter with regard to the real estate tax being at a certain level of millage and the earned income tax, should the charter be adopted, provide some flexibility in taxing options. What this really means in reality is it allows either two things. One, that the real estate tax will stay the same, or it will go down in exchange for either keeping the earned income tax same or raising it as revenue needs dictate with regard to each annual budget going forward. And expenses or costs are always a driving factor with regard to the setting of tax rates. Should the charter not pass, should it fail, it basically again puts the burden back on the real estate tax because you still have some flexibility to go upward before you hit your general purpose village cap of 30 mils. But you could then go to court annually to demonstrate to a judge out of need and necessity that you would like to have up to 5 additional mills of general purpose village as part of your real estate tax. Home rule offers a different option, which again would be on wage earners, not seniors who are on fixed income or on pensions and social security. Income tax is not taxed for that type of income. It's only earned income with regard to it affecting people that have a W-2 type of income coming in. So I just wanted to provide some clarity and some distinction between what is and what could be. But again, it's always going to be driven by the need to generate revenue, to meet your operating costs. And with home rule, it allows the real estate tax to be mitigated with regard to increasing, which is normally a last resort. So you have a little more flexibility in what options you choose. Theoretically, and actually, income is a better barometer with regard to ability to pay than a fixed value of a piece of taxable property. It does not take into effect income and ability to pay that real estate bill annually.
Preach it.
I'm taking copious notes here. Thank you. Okay,
I
we,
can see where the essential critical piece to the home rule charter debate and discussion and people's deliberation over whether or not they feel it's a better option than what you have now. And again, the rates are in the hands of the governing body with regard to whether it changes or not. Unlike the third-class city code is at the hands or the mindset of the members of the General Assembly in Harrisburg that are always hesitant to give more autonomy to local officials with regard to taxation. That's why it's called home rule.
While you're on the subject of enumerating that, can you also just speak to the limitation that we wrote in that prevents us from just being able, or prevents the governing body from being able to raise legislation or raise taxation without limitation? I mean, can
You're
you
talking about
explain the difference
a
between?
non-resident.
No, the limitation that we wrote in about the if revenue, like we cannot exceed our revenue intake over 10%.
Provides a protection, as well as a parameter that annually you cannot exceed that percentage.
And that's not percentage of taxes, that's the city, what the city would take in annually.
Yes,
Right.
The actual language, just for the record, is in any fiscal year, the additional revenue derived from a combination of real estate taxes, earned income taxes, and transfer tax shall not exceed 10% over the previous year. So it is revenue, not.
So if we were bringing in, just for like super simple numbers, $100,000 in taxation revenue, we could not raise taxes that would bring in more than 110,000. So that additional 10,000 is the maximum extra that we could bring in, and that's dispersed over every tax-paying citizen.
there's an actual analogy to that, of that 10% anti-windfall cap, we call it.
Okay,
When a county reassesses, like I believe Beaver County, did,
right.
when that new assessment takes effect, the millage rate that you institute under the new assessed value figures cannot generate more than 10% of the revenue that you received in the prior year before the new assessed values go into effect. And if you do, you have to use that toward the following year's budget to mitigate any type of tax increase or put it toward operations. So that it ends up, in a sense, being, I'll use the term, please correct me, revenue neutral, so to speak. Because with an assessed value being redone, it becomes a moving target when you have appeals. That the newly assessed values go into effect, but you still have appeals. So your millage rate, in a sense, is a moving target. What a wise choice would be is accounting would exhaust as many appeals as possible before they effectively allow the new values to take place. And I know I experienced that in Allegheny County when we went through reassessment that went into effect 21 years ago. And millage rates were close, but they weren't close enough in a lot of municipalities because they were still dealing with assessment appeals. And at times, millage rates were underestimated. And
Yeah.
communities were, oh my gosh, you know, we've lost revenue that we didn't have to lose. But again, it's an estimate you have to make at a time. But again, that's the analogy that you would have with this anti-windfall 10%, which you can't exceed under the charter if it is adopted with regard to increasing the revenue versus the increase in the rates.
Correct.
So there is a distinction.
That's
Anything
helpful.
to add to that, Bonnie?
No, I've been. Your summation is very accurate.
Or maybe,
Your summation is very accurate.
So
see,
maybe-
just like shared services, when
Mhm.
you combine communities to share services, yes, it's going to lower the cost, but in reality, it mitigates increases
Right.
because everything is going to go up. And I know that's an absolute statement, but in my short years working in government, 33, I realized that everything goes up pretty much.
Mhm.
But you can get economies of scale to mitigate, to lessen the increase because you're sharing expenses
Mhm.
rather than going it alone
Mhm.
and bearing the brunt alone. All right, I pick it up too much. Bob.
No, nope,
No,
nope.
because we can actually post this as the response to those people on Facebook who are saying it'll ruin the city, and then maybe when they hear it explained, just maybe, it could change some minds. So
I mean,
it's
nobody
helpful to
wants pay
have,
taxes.
No.
And when I was in college, I studied political science, and a US Supreme Court justice said, taxes are the price we pay to live in a civil society.
Mhm.
And nobody likes it, but the bottom line is that it's what we have to live with and deal with and pay.
Mhm.
I can tell you what people like less than paying taxes is when you have to cut your police department.
That's right, you're
Mhm.
cutting
When
your
you can't
services.
pave the road,
Mhm.
and when the sewers don't get fixed, and then they can't flush their toilets, and on and
Mhm.
on and on, or you have to eliminate the park because you can no longer afford to maintain it. So everything comes with a price tag, you know,
Mhm.
but what everybody doesn't mind is paying their cable bill, no
Oh,
matter how
Mhm.
high it gets, it's mine now, or their cell phone. So it is what it is.
Yeah, that's the disconnect that's difficult to bear is the, well, why would we pay more when we can't even, when our streets are, hot, cold now or whatever, and it's like, that's why you pay more if you want them to be fixed,
mhm.
so.
We'll keep plugging away. Okay, if there's no more discussion on that little, it seemed to be the only feedback was regarding taxes. Then we'll just pass it over to Debbie.
So, welcome, everybody. I'm glad to be here. Looks like our technology is working, so that's always a good thing. So there are just 3 or 4 things tonight that we really, as a commission, need to address. The first, and thank you, Bethany, for reminding everyone that if there are any edits to either the charter or the final report, if you've had a chance to look at them, review them, I'm happy to have any corrections or typos or anything that you found, because the second order of business is probably for the commission to make a motion, a formal motion to recommend. And I guess is it to recommend the precise question? Is that what should be in the motion? Or just to recommend the charter in the final report? I'm not exactly sure what the wording of the motion should be.
Any suggestions, Attorney Brumar? The wording of the motion.
Motion to accept the ordinance.
Well, it would be to recommend that it be submitted to the Bureau of Elections. Both the criminal charter and the final report.
Do they have to accept the final report and then recommend?
It's their final report. So as long as there's no correction, I mean, these documents are your documents.
I read some. There's just some typos.
Sure.
Typos, and I had a question about the wording of the ordinance or the actual ballot question. But
Okay.
then I saw later on that the ballot question wording was described by the legal rules, right? So maybe that question is moved. But
So just, Michael provided this today, and
I have a handout for everybody to see.
so just so that you know, there will be an official question that we refine tonight with everyone's approval. And then there will be an explanatory statement. Both of those will appear on the ballot. So we do want to make sure that we get the question correctly worded, and then the explanatory statement. And Michael has copies of those.
This is an example of what we've used in the Braddock Borough Home Rule Charter referendum. It was approved. So I wanted to share with you because I think it has direct relevance to Beaver Falls with regard to the question and the explanatory statement. Anybody else? It was drawn up by the Braddock Borough Solicitor. Because this is also a notice that has to be made in your newspaper of general circulation. Is a legal notice. And it's self-explanatory here about notices hereby given. And it has to be done 30 days before the November 2 election, where there has to be 3 consecutive advertisements. Let me repeat what the solicitor said about this. This notice must be placed in the newspaper for 3 consecutive weeks in the 30-day period prior to the election. That's the essence of it.
And we'll work with Paula, again, once we have the language exactly the way we want it. We'll work with Paula, the city clerk, to make sure that those legal advertisements get
Also,
done.
it says this notice also needs to be posted conspicuously in each polling place on election day. So not only does this have to be advertised for 3 consecutive weeks in the 30-day period prior to the election, but on election day, this notice also needs to be posted conspicuously in each polling place on November 2.
And who does that? The Elections board.
don't we have to do it?
Well,
That's what I was thinking.
I would say the election.
Or is it?
Can they do this, like the election? Bureau would do it?
I would confirm that.
No, I would confirm that. It may need to be the city doing it.
But the problem is that there's restrictions about what you can post at those polling places.
Well, at a
So you
minimum,
have to have permission.
yeah, at a minimum, I was gonna say, I would confirm with the elections board whether they are going to do it or if they are just gonna give you permission to do it.
Okay.
Okay. Before we get too much further on those logistical details, the question is, Bethany, you said you had some,
Well, I just know that every time I go to ballot question, I'm like, I can never understand it. It's hard to tell exactly how you can answer because you wander, you know? And I know that some of these things need to be said, but I don't know. I wonder if can it be worded in a more plain English way?
well, that's what the explanatory statement.
Yeah,
is
yeah,
for.
I see that. I see
It's
that. So that's-
basically to
that's
say,
helpful.
yeah, to tell people that the ballot question asks the voters whether a home rule charter should be adopted, and that a vote of yes means that.
Yeah, that helps. So having that plain English stuff. And I did see it later on. The home rule charter rule, it has to be worded this way, so it doesn't matter.
And each member of the government study commission, should they so choose to, needs to sign this final report.
Yeah, I actually have the page with me.
Once it's approved.
Once it's approved, I'll pass these around. There's a place for everyone to sign on the line so that we have original copies to submit.
And you gotta get a notary public.
Which
Seal it.
Paula is a notary.
Oh, oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have it.
I have it with me.
Paula actually is also.
Okay, Bonnie's the notary, so once she witnesses the signature. she-
Also, Bethany, did you say you had typos in the
None
charter?
of it changes in the meeting or anything.
So you can send me that before we issue the packet. What we'll do is we'll have these discussions this evening. If there's anything substantial, we definitely want to talk about it. Any typos anyone sees, those things I can handle. Within 5 days of your vote this evening, the city clerk has to certify, and I do have a letter for her to put on letterhead that she certifies that she received it. I have a letter, Regina, for you to sign once it's on city letterhead, basically delivering the charter and the final report to the election bureau. I will gather everything necessary. We'll have it notarized, and I will hand deliver it to the election bureau probably next Wednesday was my plan. So that once we get everything in place, like the approved tonight, then that'll give me a couple of days to make sure that the documents are exactly the way we want.
And the election bureau, upon receipt of the final report / home rule charter, will give a receipt to the person making the delivery, physical delivery. I've seen where the election office director will send a letter of transmittal back to the person who certifies the final report in the charter, indicating receipt of it, and that it will be placed on the ballot at the upcoming election.
And I'll leave enough copies here that if anyone would come in and want to see it and review it, then obviously we have it on the website and Facebook, and anywhere else that you think is appropriate. So want to make sure that it's widely viewed and widely distributed and available for people to. And then we get to go into the public education side of it.
I would also suggest that plain English statement that I passed out tonight be incorporated into Debbie's final report
Yes.
as the explanatory statement. Now, looking at what the solicitor did, the Braddock Borough, and the one I suggested when I emailed all of you. Mine basically says a yes vote will support the adoption of a home rule charter for the city of Beaver Falls. This one I think is a little more specific. It's in 2 sentences. Plain English version. The ballot question asks the voters of the city of Beaver Falls whether a home rule charter should be adopted, period. A vote of yes to the ballot question approves of the adoption of a home rule charter pursuant to the name of the law, and the legal citation. Think that's more appropriate, Bonnie? Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the final report and the home rule charter that we have written,
And that'll be delivered to the election.
and that it be delivered to the election bureau within 5 days
November 2.
for the November 2.
Hold on.
Help you guys.
Second that, and then with the comment, I would like to have a roll call vote. rather than voice vote. Just for the record.
Trying to keep the alphabet straight in my mind, so I guess you would be first on the roll call.
I'm sorry,
Sorry.
are you ready? Okay. I vote yes to approve.
Then it would be Mr. Carson,
I vote yes.
and here's where Jerry.
I vote yes.
Forgot my-
Oh, I forgot Michael, you're an A. I'm sorry, you should have went first. To vote, to.
All null and void.
Mhm.
I vote yes.
And Jay, I vote yes. And Neil, Bethany?
Yes.
Okay, that looks like unanimous. Motion is carried unanimously.
And I will pass the certification around. You would sign next to your name. I think 5.
Any questions or any further elaboration needed from our guest or? Because I know it's a lot when you're just coming in to kind of jump right in and follow along.
Yeah, I did review a lot of the stuff that was on your website, on the
Mhm.
Facebook page. My biggest thing today is just, I want to make sure I understand what it is, because I hear a lot of people, just. maybe say they're in the city, and I just want to make sure I understand exactly what it is before I make comments to them.
We thank you for doing that. It's much appreciated. Yeah, because too many people are not getting the education needed to form an opinion, and then you just running on rumors, and that's not good for the city at
And when
all.
I say, did you go to a meeting, did you read, this, no.
No. And that's our dilemma. How do we combat that? Gonna have to just start taking hostages and not let them out on election day. That's being recorded, okay. Yeah, do not put that in the minutes. It's bad enough it's on the record and the recording.
So what are venues for getting
Public educate.
public education?
I was thinking about that because we kind of need venues that will have the technology available. Like we would need the screen to project the PowerPoint and, so. Because we want to move it around, but then we kind of need it to be a place where, because the library, anytime we've done things there for the CDC, we had to bring our own screen, our own projector, so.
I can
I don't know.
speak to that somewhat. I do have a projector,
Okay.
the laptop and the projector. Usually you just need a blank wall
Mhm.
like this that you can project on. I don't have a screen, but typically the wall is just like that. So if it's on a meeting, if the meeting is scheduled on a night when I can be there, I can definitely provide a projector and a laptop.
Awesome. 'Cause
project the
I
power.
had in mind maybe the library and if possible, the well would be two good venues.
I sound like you're-
That'd be great for, yeah. Does anybody know, because I am not active in this, is Eye on the City / Neighborhood Watch, that's not going on because of COVID?
Mhm.
Okay. That's unfortunate. That would be a great group to. Maybe perhaps they have a network of like an emailing list for meetings or something, and we could try to.
I had thought about trying to, figuring that would kick off maybe in September, but
I haven't seen anything.
I don't
that would
feel
indicate
very,
that-
well, I don't feel very confident myself in pushing for now,
Right,
right at the moment.
right.
Too iffy in my opinion. So here's another suggestion that I would have, and that would be that really our work is done, other than the education piece. What if we just keep to our established meeting schedule? So we meet what is it?
First and third
First
Thursday.
and third Thursdays.
Mhm.
And then we just set up different places to meet on the first and third Thursdays. And as many of us as can get to those, should try to get to those. And we publicize the meetings. We can post when public meetings are going to be held. But just as a way for us to get our hands around how many meetings are we going to have and when are those meetings going to be?
Right. Was there a
So that
good,
really gives us just four times, right? Because there would be 2 months now between,
2 in September and 2 in-
yeah, and October before the
Yeah.
election, which
That's
is, I think that's a considerable amount of, people or times.
Mhm.
Perhaps maybe we could toss in a different time because evenings are tough for people with small kids.
Yeah, you can't sign legal documents in pink, no. No, I'm sorry. I used to get corrected. Okay, because I,
No. it's not a special meeting, I'm
It's
sure
gonna be
you're
on Channel 4 News, don't worry about it.
I want a picture of the full commission too before we move.
have to get cleaned up.
Now, those meetings is great, but we only get 10 to 15 people. We need
Right.
something more
We-
mass oriented.
Well, I
in
mean, it can be
addition
in
to-
different locations.
Right,
You
that's
know what I
why
mean?
I was
And-
thinking
What
move
about
it.
the door hangers? We give up on that idea? or-
No,
No, my plan honestly is to
Yes.
just make sure that I specifically go talk to people in my neighborhood. Like, and I would encourage all of us to consider doing that too, because
One of the things I've seen done that you might want to consider is to form small committees, 2 or 3 people who are interested in doing one thing or another. Like there may be somebody who's interested in the print material and preparing that and finding a way to get that distributed. Someone might be interested in putting together these neighborhood meetings. By doing that, I don't think you have to do it at a formal meeting because it's a subcommittee or, when it's only 2 or 3 people. So that's one thing that you might want to consider because then you could talk and interact unofficially and kind of put a plan together of what exactly you wanted to do.
What did Newcastle think is the most official?
They did do the door hangers. They met on, I think it was a Saturday morning and divvied up the town and everybody took, part of the town and did that. The billboard, obviously, they put it in a location where everyone could see it. But I think, Kirsten's right too. I think a lot depends on who you talk to, how you get the message out, one-on-one conversations. Those are good, small groups. Yeah, there's a lot. It's a little different in this environment. But the whole Newcastle process was very tough. And the entire process, they didn't have a choice. Once it was on the ballot, they had 18 months. And so they did everything that, they could do during that 18 months period. It was all in the environment.
Us setting up a interview or let the Beaver County Times editorial staff interview you.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. I think we had talked about that. Although I'll tell you, the Beaver County Times did a great story. It would be nice if there was an editorial encouraging people to vote.
I can write a letter to the editor, which will go in there. and-
Yeah, sometimes they'll let people do an op-ed piece where you're actually putting.
Is there a local talk show on radio here?
Oh, yeah.
Or get on there for a half hour, and
Mhm.
people call in.
You try to figure out where do people get their local news, and that's a challenge. I mean, it
I
really
think they're
is.
getting it on Facebook.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's where they're getting it.
Thank
Do we know if there's a group that is actively pushing against home rule?
I'm
I'm
sure
sorry?
there is, as their group actively pushing, and yes, I'm
I-
gonna say.
I don't know that there's an active group, but I think there's quite a few folks that are saying, don't
Mhm.
do it.
We just
And
have to be
unfortunately,
more,
I feel like it's founded on false assumptions.
It is.
but-
Sure.
it's lack of education, completely lack of education. So,
There really is.
Then when.
There's not that much difference between the home rule and third class city code. All it is is flexibility on tax.
that's
And
it.
the
As
structure.
far as hiring a functional officer, you can do that anyhow.
And that's much
Right.
needed.
Third class city doesn't
Yeah,
stop you
that's,
from doing
that's
that.
much needed.
Jared, I would love to maybe do like a quick thing, Facebook Live, like for with you specifically, because you're the city controller and you're advocating to get rid of this. And I feel that's
That may
pretty
be my
powerful.
job, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
I
get
think that's
my
pretty
knowledge
powerful.
about other.
Yeah, exactly.
from-
I think that's pretty powerful for people who are like really concerned that this is a money grab, but clearly not.
Right.
From the horse's mouth, but you're not horse.
That is, because we could set that stream up anytime.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that would be good. And I did put in my notes that we should have reach out to Trails and the Leo Club about, doing an education meeting with them.
About second back.
Mhm.
Yeah, why didn't I put that in my notes? I'm sure they'd be willing. Which I wouldn't mind reaching out to the people that we want to like, okay, can we come and just present this to you?
I would be happy to reach out to the well.
Mhm.
Way back when we started
Okay,
this,
put your name by reaching out to them.
I talked to, I had interviewed Reverend Tench,
Yes, you did.
and he said he would be more than willing to give us exposure to his congregation.
Because we could use their education center.
Yeah.
Which is great. Yeah, that's an excellent spot.
So,
Any other suggestions on who to maybe reach out to group wise?
Is the Beaver Falls Business District Authority active right now?
Yes.
It
And
is.
I'm working with them through Carl Chapel.
Would you want to?
Yeah, I'm gonna meet with him and then do that and go from there.
You did mention the CDC. Bethany
yeah.
Williams could help with that.
I actually sent the PowerPoint, the draft, the final report, our website link to Mary Beth Quinn, who's the president of CDC, and she was passing that information on to all of the CDC members. So,
Bethany Williams. Is she Bethany?
We have a budget.
We don't, I'm hoping to be able to meet with Kevin and Nick to see what kind of, if there's money that the city can contribute.
We ever find out, like, if we did a mass mailing, like typically happens around political season, election season, how much that would cost?
I had talked to Carl about getting me figures, and then when it seemed like I thought it was, the mailing was next, but I didn't do the door hangers, so I can definitely, I mean, I definitely think that's a good idea.
mhm.
I think we need to have some budget numbers for this to be filed.
Right, and I'm gonna,
Yeah.
I offered to talk to Mick
Yes.
and get their numbers, and then we'll just estimate.
Okay. Any other ideas, suggestions, comments, concerns? This is going way too quick.
No, no such thing as
Like,
way too quick.
yeah, like,
Well, we did the work.
18 months.
I
yeah.
was gonna say, it was a lot of.
I mean,
a lot
we're
of
usually
hard
here
work on
till
your
8:30. I'm like, what is going on?
When we're talking to community groups,
Mhm.
can we try to get them to, maybe we can meet with them on one of those first or third Thursdays?
Right, that's, I'm
Yeah.
gonna run with Doug's suggestion.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're all kind
Already
of,
scheduled
we
for that.
put our schedule around these first and third Thursdays. So let's stick with that. That's a good one.
I do think it would behoove us to do at least one on either a weekend, at some point.
Like a Saturday.
Yeah, like during the day, like when people that, and maybe it's not worth it, but I'm more than happy to volunteer a few hours on a Saturday. But that can also, I mean, I think we're also probably gonna have to do that at some point with the door hangers if we go that route. So,
Well, we made you our official spokesperson anyhow, so.
No.
Yes, we did. We did that. Yeah, we did that. See, that college tuition paid off. didn't it? That communications there, yeah. Okay, well, anything else for the good of the order? Anything else I should be getting a vote on? Or that was the only vote we needed?
I think that's the only guy you needed.
Regina, do you want to try, you sent the stuff to Mary Beth, right?
Yes, I did.
Do you want to ask her if she would want to have one or two of us come to the CDC
Mhm.
meeting and actually
present.
and take questions and answers and rather than just, if they're just sending out information, information, it's,
Follow up with
Okay.
good.
Mhm.
Do
Yeah.
that as soon as I get home.
If you get on people's agendas, I think
Yeah.
that's a good thing because
I
they
would
have
be-
a built-in audience.
yeah, I'd be willing to do that.
Mhm.
You'll be there anyhow. won't
No,
you?
I'm off. now.
Are you
Yeah,
really?
I had to go off.
I must have missed that meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got an extra year added to my term last year. They said that was enough.
Okay, as soon as I get home, I will do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? No? Wow. Well, if all minds are clear, I just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Good work, everybody.